Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Elevation. Today I am joined by a very special guest. Some know him as a rock star that doesn't own or play the guitar. He's a father of four and he's achieved financial success through property development and real estate. The one thing I love about this person is that he genuinely wants to see you win and he has a heart of gold, and I'm really grateful to have him in my life. So with that said, I'd love to introduce to you Simon.
Hey Lise, how are you and everyone?
How are you today?
I'm good, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, happy to be on your show.
Thank you so much for coming. This is really cool. I think we're going to have an epic conversation today.
Sure.
So with that said, my guests are probably wondering, who is this Simon guy? So how old are you? Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
57 actually, 58 this year. I grew up in Melbourne. And I started in real estate down there, but I moved to Queensland when I was 27 in 1991.
Yes. Yeah. And so you started property and real estate. How old were you when you started that?
I started at 17.
Yeah.
I got into real estate doing rentals, but I always knew at 14 what I wanted to do just by observing kids at school getting dropped off in nice cars, and they were always in property, real estate, sales and marketing. So at the age of 14, I knew what I wanted to do. Yeah. So, and then I tried to get a job, which was very difficult at 17 in a borrowed suit, but my mum drove me around 40, 50, 60 real estate offices, and eventually I got a position with a very small firm in rentals doing absolutely everything. Yeah. So I had to do everything for the grand sum of $96 a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where I started, but I learned so much in those 3 years from a person, John Ross, who I'd call my mentor, or one of my mentors in life, because he taught me how to do things maybe the right, wrong way, but the efficient way.
Wow. So, and so are you currently doing that now still?
No, I did that for 3 years, and then on the 2 days I had off, which was Tuesday and Sundays, I used to go and build timber fences for my brother's firm, who my uncle used to own, and I'd make $180 a week for the 2 days of fencing and $96 a week for the 5 days of real estate.
Wow.
But I knew I didn't want to be a fencer.
Yeah.
So I always knew what I wanted to do. And I never doubted that. I never ever doubted I wouldn't achieve success in what I was doing. So, yeah.
That's so powerful. I love that, absolute belief and faith that you have in yourself. And I'm keen to get into that today a bit later. But some people describe you as a rock star that doesn't own or play the guitar. Obviously, I'm sitting next to you. Yeah. I'm sitting next to Simon today. And, yes, I wish you guys could see this visual. Simon is so eccentric, and I love this about him. He is completely himself. So I guess maybe elaborate on what this means. How would the listeners
It's just because I wear rings on every finger, bracelets on every hand, and I still wear gold Rolexes and drive a roller and do all that, but I look like a bum. So I've always been like that. I've always had a unique personality and elite sort of dress. There's a period where probably in my 30s, I had to conform in terms of how I behaved with banks and institutions and that type of thing. But as soon as I sort of reached my level of self-awareness and self-identity and self-wealth, then I was able to truly just be myself.
Yeah.
And that's what you see is what you get.
I love that. Yeah, it's like not really worrying about what anyone thinks.
Not at all. I mean, people today don't understand how I've achieved what I've achieved when they look at me because I'm just so unique. I don't bullshit anyone. I tell it as it is. I have stories that people vicariously love to listen to because they're bizarre. Some I can't talk about on this show, but
definitely
anyway,
not.
no, I don't. So anyway, but yeah, so it's in the last 10 years, people who meet me can't understand, how I've got what I've got. Yeah. How I'm just the things I've got. I have. Because I enjoy them too. Yeah. House on the beach, house on the river.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's give the listeners some context because you're obviously speaking to, you've got what you've got now, but what is that, what have you achieved?
Yeah, I think I achieved what I wanted by about 50. Yeah. And then if we get into what I've done and how I've done what I've done, it becomes its own creation. Your business, you can stop. But the business doesn't stop. In property, the rents still go up, the values still go up. Even though I'm not so involved in it anymore, I still own it all. Yeah. And I've probably made more money in the last 10 years by not working. Yeah. And, through just compounding. And again, that's where we get back to, compounding is probably the greatest thing about money in that it just keeps creating money on top of the money. So, but that's a different sort of aspect to it.
Yeah. We'll definitely go into compounding and the power of that a bit later. I guess potentially what would be, Simon, your maybe top 5 things that you've achieved in your life and you've gone that's really cool. I'm really proud of myself for that.
Yeah, probably.
You can brag as well. You don't have to be modest.
I don't want to brag though because it's not about bragging. I bought a car for over $1 million and it's probably something the first time I did that, a watch for $1 million.
Yeah, that's so cool, yeah.
And, I bought a double block on the beach at Hedges here for, $5 million, not so long ago that's worth 4 times that now. Yeah. And just different milestones. But at the end of it, it's what you do with it and how you live with it. Yeah. And we talked earlier about you get to a point where, I have anyway. People always say, let's do this, let's do that, let's make some money. And I say to everyone, I'm the only person I know who's ever said it, is I don't want to make any more money. Yeah. I actually don't. I like spending my money. Yeah. Because I can't take it with me. My kids are all doing well. And, you've got to de-invest at some point. There's no point having X amount at 40, 50, 60, 70 and then saying, gee, I'm going to retire and enjoy life and then you die. So, so I spend it, I waste it, I do stupid things with it, but I never spend money I haven't got, as in I don't touch my business. I let my business give me what it can give me, but the business is the most important thing and protection of that business. So when things start to slow down or go bad, you get rid of everything, the cars, boats. You don't need all those things. Watches, they can all go. But you just protect your core, be it a share portfolio or real estate. You protect your core assets. And, a lot of that comes down to when you're younger, you leverage and you borrow as much as you can. And then you get to my age and you don't want to borrow. You actually don't want to deal with banks and you don't want to have the risk that comes with leverage. And they're the core things I've spoken to you about before is, time, compounding, leverage, and your capital, and the relationship between changing any of those and how it affects your risk. And it's directly proportional. If you leverage at 20%, you've got zero risk. You leverage at 90%, you've got very, very high risk and a very high chance that you won't hang on to it. So everyone's in a different sort of part of that. But, so mine's been a slow journey, and I've had a lot of friends that have had a lot more money and lost it because they didn't have income. And I've always been fairly well guarded because I've always had income. Everything I've had has always been rented. I've always had money coming in. So when the value drops from X to half of X, the banks tend to leave you alone because your income stays the same. Whereas if you've got a big land development and suddenly the value halves and you've got no income, well, then it's all over. So
I'm really glad that I have you on today, because I know some of the listeners will have that belief of, I've got to really work hard for my money. And I like how you said before, like the less I've worked over the past 10 years, the more I've made. And also that coming from potentially listeners that are tuning into this right now, not sure which direction to go, and may have that scarcity mindset around really like save your money, and things like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, working hard to make a living and things like that. And then on your end as well, then getting to a point in your life where it's like, okay, I have achieved my success and now I actually want, like, what was the point in all that, and using it for like your own benefit, like your fun and like to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to get stuck in that hustle and grind of business and keep going and forget about what the point of starting was in the first place. So
and just on that, you actually, when I finished work, basically not finished work, I mean, I still own all my property, so I still have an interest in everything and how it all goes, that in the sense of when I was young, I worked hard. I mean, you know, that's the important thing for your listeners. If they're young in their 20s, you know, you have to work hard. I mean, I made $96 a week, 5 days a week. I made $180 the other 2. I worked 7 days. Now, I bought a house in Kew in Melbourne for $60,000 at 19. I'd only been worked a year and a half. I drove a BMW, and the only reason I did that was because I was fencing 2 days a week. That was the money that allowed me to do those things. But I didn't get to travel. I never got to go have a gap year. I never got to go surfing again. I never got to do anything because I was pretty much driven by wanting to be better than everyone else my age at the time. That's how I sort of, And the other interesting part is that after I finished the 3 years at $96 a week in rentals, what I'd learnt there, the first year I went to a new firm, Progressive, I ran their land department, I earned $75,000 the first year. So I went from $4,900 a year in year 3 of working to year 4 I made 75, then 100, and then 120 in my 6th year. And it was because of what I'd learnt doing the hard slog. And I used to go home and say to my dad, he hasn't paid me again. He hasn't paid me again in my first job. He said, it doesn't matter, you've got a job. You know, this is what you wanted. You wanted to be in I know. And then away I'd go again. And sometimes he wouldn't pay me for 2 or 3 weeks. But, you know, you have to have sacrifices. And you can't start at 50. You know, you have to start when you're young. You've got to work hard when you're young because you can take risks when you're young, because if there's a little bit of failure, you've got all the time in the world to bounce back. Whereas when you get to 58, 59, 60, whatever, it's very difficult to bounce back.
I think, like, on that, with failure, it's always feedback. There really is no failure because everything, all the challenges, right, they all happen for you.
100%.
Like, I'm sure the listeners, like, that are tuning in right now, if they were to reflect back on their life, and even for yourself, Simon, reflecting back on all those times where life challenged the heck out of you, and then looking back and realizing, actually, I'm glad that happened because now I'm the person I am today because that has happened.
The other interesting part about that is that of all the successes, I would say 60% of my property deals have been failures. But the 40% that are successes are always big successes. They always go really well. And your 60% of failures, either you walk out of 40% of them break even, 20% you lose. But I hear so many people say, you know, we bought a house and we sold it, we lost $200,000, so we're not going to do it again. Now, that was never my problem. If I got knocked down, I got up. I always bought. Didn't matter whether the market was good, bad or indifferent. You either stay in the market or not. And I am more probably a property person than a share person. But the reality of property and shares is they're both, fundamentally, they run at the same growth rate over time. Over a 30-year period out of any 100, it's 9 to 10% and shares and property with dividends, rent returns, gearing, all average about the same. So, and, there's all the other things. I can't give you any advice because I've never been involved in. Don't, get involved too much in a little bit of crypto and that sort of thing, but it's not my area.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think there's so much hype around crypto and stuff at the moment, and I'd really like to hear your, point of view on more so shares and property, because I think a lot of people listening, they may be starting to come into the property market, but potentially more interested in the shares aspect and the power of compounding. So maybe if you could give, let's say, someone like in their early 20s wanting to compound their wealth, what would be maybe 3 main pieces of advice you could give to that person? Okay,
in the 20s, it's very hard at the moment to get into the property market because the getting cost is it's exorbitant. Yeah. And I just watching something the other day, it said, young people need to save 8 years to get a deposit for a house.
On average, wow.
On average. Now, that you can't just save for 8 years. You're better off to start, even if you've got $100 a week, you're better off to put your money into a fund, a share fund, be it whichever one, that's a balanced fund that is well respected, and you just keep putting your money in there, and it will grow at an average of 9% or 10%. Undeniable. That's what happens. And you can go back for the last 100 years and look at that. And there are so many facts of life in terms of historical numbers that we only need to look at, and then we can use them as multipliers to look forward. And a couple of funny examples is my dad bought 2 blocks of land in Templestowe for $3,500. 42 years later, he wanted to buy another one to build Mum a new house, and he had to pay $750,000 for it. Now, if you do the numbers on that and you extrapolate it out, if I'd said, and I say to my son all the time, you bought a house for $630,000, it'll be worth $650 million in 40 years. And he says, no, it won't, that's stupid. But he's slowly learning that that's not stupid, because that is the fact of compounding what property's done in the past and what it will do in the future. And it's not even a question of if, it's just a question of when. And providing whatever you put in to your portfolio, you leave there and you don't touch it. Because if you pull $100 out of a $1,000 investment 5 years into it, the effects at 30 years are astronomical. Instead of you getting $40,000 out of a $500 investment over 30 years, if you take $250 out at year 10, that $40,000 turns back into about 15 because of compounding. You must leave it in there and let it run and run. So everyone, doesn't matter what you do for a living, if you're a builder or a plasterer or you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, what you put aside to leave and let compound and work for you is what you don't touch, ever. No one's saying don't live a nice life, don't have fun, don't buy cars, but the money you put aside to follow what I believe, and there are many other much smarter people than me that already know this, but I was never told it, I was never taught it, no one ever told me. It's just I sort of fell into it and learnt it later that it is to do with compounding, leverage, time, and the capital you've got to put in through the process. So I look at it as a simple formula. You can multiply all those things and change your leverage from 20% to 80%, and affects the outcome, but it also increases the level of risk. And it's basic, but needs a lot more explanation than just talking to you.
That's okay. Well, to put it in some context, when I first met Simon, he showed up with all these notes scribbled on this piece of paper. He's got them with him today. He's like, Elise, these are all my ideas, and I journaled about them the other day, all in one night, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just got it all out of his head, and I was like, Simon, you need to do a seminar or something and teach people about this. And that's why I was like, okay, let's get you on my podcast so you can share a little bit about what it is that you do and give, the young people, the next generation, some insight into how they can create their dream life.
Yeah.
And, whether it be like buying their favorite car or a house on the water, it doesn't have to be that. It could just be like just having that comfortability to be able to make decisions in their life and have that flexibility to do things that elevate them and their vibration, whether it's just, having enough money to go and buy organic produce every week, or, a holiday, or investing into a charity. There's so many things that I think a lot of people would listen to this and go, I just want that financial flexibility so I can go and do this. And
the financial freedom comes through being disciplined, and you have to start when you're young. You can't start at 50 or 40. You really got to start in your 20s, early 30s maybe, but you really got to start young, and you've got to be disciplined and just leave it.
Yeah.
You can still have your holidays, and your job will increase. You'll get better at your job. You'll make more money. Then you can look at whether you want to put more money into your investment strategy.
Yeah.
Because your investment strategy should run parallel with your life strategy. And wealth is not about money. Wealth is about but people have different ideas of wealth. Some people are spiritually extremely wealthy, and some people are money extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
But their perception of wealth is extremely different. But in my case, being able to do the things I wanted to do later in life was more important than doing the things earlier in life. So that's sort of where I always had that philosophy in my head that at 45 or 50, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be driving around nailing 4 lease or 4 sale signs up, or building, or dealing with, to do a development today, the red tape, green tape, and cost and everything.
I think so many people can relate with that,
Yeah, and it's hard work, and it's taxing on you mentally. So I just wanted to get to a point where I had enough money, I could say, I want to do whatever I want to do now, and that's sort of where I got to.
So then I guess to put that in summary, like in shares, it's just starting young.
Yep.
So if you're listening and you've been thinking about it, start. And then
your transition, when your share portfolio grows big enough, if you want to transition and you've got 200 or 250,000 in your share portfolio, you can then transition that across into real estate.
Yeah.
Where you go and buy a unit for 400 or 500 or 600, whatever the case may be. And then you can then leverage off your real estate if you want to follow a real estate path. But the general rule as you get wealthier is you have a mix of cash, shares and property. A third, or 40, and then 20 in cash. It's always good to have cash reserves for when things turn bad, and things always turn bad.
And so I'm curious to know as well, because I'm sure people are listening and have no idea about any of this. So what could be some tangible steps? So for example, we said before about, just starting. What does that look like? Does that look like getting out your phone and searching what?
It starts by getting out your phone and downloading one of the 4 major banks' share trading apps.
Yep, which they have names or?
Yeah, you've got CommBank, CommSec Trading with Commonwealth Bank. You've got Westpac Online Trading, which is what I use. And then ANZ and, NAB have the same things.
Yep.
You open your own account. You do it all online. I did it at 4 o'clock in the morning once. After about 20 beers, opened an account.
After being a rock star.
Yeah, bought a lot of money's worth of shares with someone else's money that I was mining for them.
Yep.
And I made $250,000 in 6 weeks, and then I sold it and gave them their money back.
Yeah, wow.
So, but that's my experience because I got
over time. That's over practice.
That's just over the top of a loss that I was able to afford to lose it. But my point is, anyone in their 20s can just open an account and put $100, $50 a week. And I've showed you the example there. And one of my examples in my UBUT seminar,
his scribbly notes,
is if you took 500, if you went and asked your mum and dad to borrow $2,000 and you bought a car on eBay, cleaned it up, sold it the next week, you made $500. If you put it in the bank at 4%, in 30 years it'd be worth $1,600 odd. If you actually put it into shares, at 9 or 10% and let it compound, it would be worth $8,725 in exactly the same period for exactly the same amount. If you then went and leveraged it at 50%, paid the 4% interest on the other 500 you borrowed against the 500, then you're getting 16% compounding effect, and the number turns out at $42,925 for the same amount of money over the same period of time. And that's the power of compounding and the power of leverage. So there's very little risk at 50%. There's no risk in property at 50% generally. And in shares, even if you gear them at 20%, 30%, this number will be 30,000 or 32,000.
Yeah.
But if you just put it in the bank and save, in your Commonwealth Bank piggy bank savings account or your ANZ when you're a kid at school, you're going to have $1,600.
Yeah.
Whereas if you learn to borrow a little bit against your equity, you can turn that same amount of money into 42,000.
Yeah, that's
people find that hard to believe, but, sit at the calculator, do the numbers.
Yeah, he's got his notes out.
That's how it turns out.
Because for me personally, and I'm sure so many people will be able to relate with where I was at, my entire life I was told to save my money and to not spend it vicariously, or to gamble and by investing on shares and crypto. So for me, I avoided learning really anything about that because I saw it as uncertainty and danger. So it was for me, my entire life was, okay, if I save, put it all in my Combank account and grow my savings, that's how I will achieve my wealth that I'm wanting with my goals. And then I have a chat to this Simon and I'm it really just expands my horizon and I guess knowledge about wealth creation. And it's really cool to just, I guess, you only know what you know. And so that's why I thought it'd be cool to get Simon on my show, is to to highlight there are other pathways, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I always, it truly, it's just a mathematical equation. It's mathematics. It's not genius or anything. It's just following a mathematical strategy of not just letting your money grow at, well, you wouldn't get 4% in the bank at the moment. You get 1 if you're lucky, which means your $500 is probably worth about $600 in 30 years. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So you have to take your money and make your money work for you. And then as you get older, your money actually then it morphs into its own machine. And where if you've got good property that has good returns and that sort of thing, you don't have to do anything. It will look after itself. Yes, it will go down. There's no doubt about it. But another example is just on the Gold Coast here in Mermaid, that houses in 2008 were 1.4 million, and I bought one in 2010 after the GFC hit for 725,000. Now that house today got back to 1.4 million. It took 12 years. It was about 10 years. It was about 2018. They sort of nearly got back to where they were 10 years before. But that same house is now worth 2.4 million. So in the last 2 years, it's gone $1 million over where it was 10 years prior. So that's why I say about a 30-year cycle. You can't do it in, out, in, out, in, out. It's just a long-term strategy. You've got to leave it and not touch it. And all those big dips in the share market and all those big rises, you'll be tempted when it rises to go and throw more money in. You'll be tempted to sell when it's high, and you'll be tempted to get out when it's low because you don't want to lose anymore and all those things. But you've got to ignore all that. You have to take all those fundamentals out of it and just put it aside and let compounding and time do its work. And it will do all the heavy lifting for it. And, yeah.
It's almost like what I'm witnessing in this conversation is the power of faith. And you even said it before, I knew what I wanted to do when I was younger, and you had that laser focus for what it is that you wanted and what you wanted to manifest in your life, and you achieved all of that. Yeah. And so I guess what I want to know is how does one have full trust in that vision, and what would be your advice for someone that potentially wants this for themselves, however they are not really sure how to get there, and maybe a second guessing whether it's possible.
Yeah. It's educating yourself in it. And, I mean, I went to a seminar with Elise not long ago, and I listened, and I hadn't been to one for many years, because when I was a kid, I used to go to every real estate seminar. Everyone who flew in from America, I used to go and pay my money, buy their tapes for $800, listen to it all, take in everything. And, I mean, there's so much to be gained from listening to other people that I have no intention of selling programs or anything, because that's not, I just believe that this needs, no one ever told me. And there are people who can teach you this and tell you that, and you should go and pay the money and you should listen to them. And, I mean, if you look at the bottom line of my whole thing, you know, it says hold your nerve, but it's got the F word in between. So the point of that is that when things do go bad, that just hold your nerve. Don't panic. This year, wealth was capital times leverage times compounding times time. This year is totally affected by those four things.
And when you say this year, what is that specifically?
What's that?
So what is what's the equation?
It's just wealth.
Yeah.
As in how much your wealth ends up at over time, and it's your capital, how much you put in over time, your leverage.
Multiplied by leverage.
By if you want to borrow 40%, 10%, 20%. Capital.
Multiplied by capital.
Oh, sorry, compounding. By the time, you know, how it will compound with time.
Yeah.
So the time is if you leave it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. The compounding factor is, do I buy shares at 9%? Do I put in the bank at 4%? So that's what will affect that. Your leverage, how much do I gear it? And your C is how much capital I put in at the start. And you leave your pinky out, you know, your thumb's compounding, your next one's time.
Your middle finger.
Leverage, etc. Yeah. And your little finger becomes risk.
Yeah.
So every time you alter the percentage on any of these four, leverage in particular affects your risk. And time can affect your risk too, because if you try and have a strategy over a short period of time and you're in the wrong part of the curve, then that affects your risk.
Yeah.
So I believe 30 years is the number. I've heard other people talk about a 25-year strategy, a 35-year strategy, but generally it's in that spectrum.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people in the younger generation see there's like this whole thing with NFTs and crypto, and it's like that quick strategy to get rich sort of thing. And I think with that, like you said, that's a perfect example. The shorter the time, the higher the risk.
Yes, without a doubt, because then you have to either leverage more or you have to risk more. You have to go to something like, and I'm not putting crypto down, don't get me wrong, but crypto fluctuates, you know, dramatically in a day. And yes, you can make quick money, but you can also lose your money very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas this strategy that I've done, followed all my life, has never been about making money quickly. Even all my mates used to say, oh, you know, I just ticked along.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of respect. There was a lot of people that I admire for what they've done and everything else. Yeah.
It's like got flying pieces of paper around here, so if you hear the little crunchy noises.
I'll put my paper away so I don't upset a leaf.
Yeah. So let's go into luck, because I'm sure so many people are like, oh, Simon, you're so lucky that you have everything that you want. Like, it's easy for you. And I know, like, I even have people say this to me, like, that a lot of opportunities and things like that have always just easily come my way, and I'm just super lucky. Yeah. So I would love for you to elaborate maybe on that a little bit. And yeah, I guess potentially for the high achievers listening, they would probably experience the same thing.
100%.
So what would be maybe your advice for them?
So luck is not luck as in even buying a Tats Lotto ticket. There's a certain amount of not luck in that, because if you don't buy the ticket, you won't win the prize. So you have to be prepared when the opportunity is there, and preparedness is buying the ticket. So people would say, gee, you're lucky you won Lotto. But if you weren't prepared to buy a ticket because the opportunity was there to win 20 million on Thursday night, so it's the line of opportunity and the line of being prepared. And when those two cross, that is luck. And without rustling paper, opportunities are like shooting stars. They're always there every day. We just don't see them. Whereas if you drive out into the middle of Australia and you lay on your back, all night you see shooting stars. They're there every night. And opportunities are like that. But if you're not prepared to drive out there, lay on your back and watch them, you will never see them. So you have to be in a position where an opportunity, and they come in many different ways, because some people in my field, it's generally a real estate type opportunity, and I need to be ready. I need to be prepared. I need to have my deposit. I need to have my finance. I need to have my ability to make the repayment. So I need to have all those things in place. So when that opportunity comes past me, I can say that's the one for me. Now, it's the same in any field or any business.
Yeah.
But if I'm not prepared, if I don't have my deposit, if I don't have my bank, if I don't have all my affairs in order, and the cheapest property in the world comes sailing past me, unlucky because I missed it. Yeah. So you must be prepared. And where those two lines cross is where I believe luck is. When you're prepared, an opportunity comes past and you secure it. So I've been lucky many times. And then I keep those lucky opportunities and I rent them and I build them and I make millions out of them and all those type of things. And then down the track people say, gee, you're lucky you bought that land. You know, I mean, I bought land in Coomera 21 years ago. And I bought land in Ormo 26 years ago. People say, wow, I was lucky you bought that. But it wasn't. It took a lot of preparedness to be able to buy land out there so long ago when there was nothing, like not a house around. And yet I built 2 shopping centres, a Woolies, a Coles, 100 shops, and all other sorts of things.
It's like, to put it in context as well, I actually did a podcast episode on this, on what you focus on expands. And so for you, your pure focus was real estate and property development for those so many years, right? And like, maybe for the listeners, maybe some athletes are out there listening and are wanting, like they've won a competition, for example, they're getting prepared in between like competition and the pre-season. So you're getting prepared, getting ready. And then when the opportunity does come and present itself, it's like, boom, it's that luck that comes in. However, it's actually just that your reticular activating system in your brain has been wired to look and search your experience for those opportunities that you seek. And that's like the power of manifestation and what you speak about now with like other people considering that as luck, when actually it's just that your brain is wired to seek the opportunities of that which you want. Yeah. Which is so cool.
And touching on sports people, I mean, there's so many athletes that make so much money when they're young. I mean, $1 million contracts at 22 and 23. You know, and then not a lot of athletes in many sports get beyond 30. And it's easy to spend $1 million a year when you're 25 and running around. But the opportunity for those athletes is to put that money aside into a strategy that when their sports career does finish, be it through injury, age, you know, skills, drop off, whatever, that they then have this whole other life strategy that's still going. Because so often you hear about sports people when they retire getting depressed or, you know, wondering what life, you know, what's life after sport, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'm not a psychologist, don't get me wrong.
Well, that's why I do.
Probably the worst psychologist in the world, but...
that's why I do what I do with mindset coaching for professional athletes to help them, in those sorts of circumstances.
Yeah. But again, at the end of your career, it's too late to think about that when you're blowing all your money.
Yeah.
It's really, really important that they, you know, put money aside into an investment strategy, still enjoy your sporting life. But if you're making $1 million a year at 25 or 24 or 23, like you should be spending 200 of that, and you should be putting 800 away, because you should be able to realise, which many can't, because they don't either get the right advice or they're too young. You know, they're not developed in the sense that a lot of people think that this is how life is and it's going to go on forever. You know, when they're on a good, when you're young and you're on this opportunity of things going well, you don't think that's going to end. but it generally does.
But even like if it doesn't end, there's always maybe some challenges in the way to humble you.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And even with what I've done, I mean, I've had many challenges along the way and hurdles that I've had to, obstacles I've had, and even getting certain approvals. I mean, I had one instance where I had to spend $4.5 million in legal fees to get an approval for a property that I had to borrow from my father. I had to borrow from the bank just to pay legal fees.
Yeah, wow.
And, it was just group determination that I was right. And in the end, I was right, but it was a long road to get there, and I could easily have just fallen over and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
So, there's difficulty.
On that as well, Simon, going into like those challenging times, and like you said, like that was really a challenge for you outside of your comfort zone. So I guess for the listeners, they might be going through something right now that it feels uncomfortable or challenging. And what would be maybe your advice for them on like how to stay focused on that goal even when it feels so far away?
Sure, if it's a financial goal and you push, into a corner or a hard place, I always just went, I've done it 3 times. I just went to my brother or whoever, my father, my other partners, and just said, we'll just sell everything that doesn't make any money. So we had vacant land, we had cars, we had boats, we had a plane, we had all sorts of things. So all those things had to go.
Yeah.
And one of my other mentors and partners, he taught me that. He said, get rid of everything. He said that his philosophy was the most important thing in your life is your business and your wife comes second. So he was a pretty tough man, but fundamentally, it was when in 1994, I'd been here 3 years, the banks came up, they wanted us to sell up, and it was sell everything we could possibly sell that wasn't contributing to the business. So it meant we didn't drive our cars, we drove shit boxes.
Yeah.
It means we didn't have boats, we didn't go on holidays, we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Everything got pushed back into work. And I've done that with my brother since then in another phase, in about 2006 and 7, where I just said to him, get rid of everything. Close our office, we're not paying rent, we'll work out of wherever, shipping containers, it didn't matter. So probably the most important thing is if you see the storm coming, get prepared for the storm. Get rid of all the deck chairs that are sitting around the pool, because they are going to blow away. So, clean up all your housework, all your housekeeping.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to not affect the people around me by saying to my kids or that, look out, disaster's coming. I'd sort of insulate them from what was happening. And similarly, when things were good, I'd never say to them, gee, let's go on a spending spree because things are great.
Yeah.
So I'd never say to them, we're going really bad, sell your bike and, So I tried to keep a bit of a balance with that to keep consistency through life.
Yeah.
But then you end up carrying everything yourself. So that can have some emotional, pressures.
Yeah, of course. Well, I was listening to an interview with Rafa Nadal actually the other day, and he was speaking on not having your happiness attached to the super highs or the super lows.
Sure.
And in those times where you're having like great success and you're achieving all the things that you've set out to achieve, it's like not feeling that overexcitement and being quite neutral, like having the gratitude, but also like in the times of loss. So when you're not winning at life, therefore you're like, it's a less distance to fall per se. So it's like not having your happiness attached to the outcome and just being present in each moment.
It's interesting you say that, because some of my happiest times in life have been when I've been at the most challenged time in work.
Yeah.
And some of, even currently, raising a 12-year-old who's not probably behaving as well as he could and being probably in the most successful part of my life.
Yeah.
So my emotional challenges I've got business highs, but, emotional challenges.
Yeah.
And at other times I've had business lows, but emotional highs through relationships or that type of thing. So I fully understand where you're coming from when he says, everything's not attached to being happy when you're doing well and being sad when you're not. And also, life's life. Life, you got to enjoy it. You're not here forever, so yeah.
Yeah, that's
I've lived cool. About 8 lifetimes out of 1, so I can't truly can't say I would ever have any regrets.
Yeah.
So just got to live long enough to get the underwear out of the way.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine. Hey, yeah. So I guess here's a really cool question for you, Simon. Over the past few years, let's say, what would be your best investment under $100?
Under $100.
Do you need thinking music?
I need a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Under $100.
Yeah.
I don't think I've bought anything under $100.
Could be anything.
No, move on.
No, that's cheating.
I can't. My best investment under $100.
Could be time, energy. Doesn't have to be money that you've invested.
No, I understand that. I'm trying to think. I just can't think. If you ask me what's my best investment over $1 million, I can give you a lot.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to test you.
It just have to be something small, like taking my son to dinner or, young chat with his mates or something like that. We do that quite often, so that's cool. That's fun.
Because you get, your joy out of that.
Yeah, I get the joy out of that. I took him and 2 of his mates. I don't think they'd ever been to young chat. And I kept saying, eat. They wouldn't eat, they wouldn't touch it. And I said, no, it's there, everyone shares it. Oh, okay. And then they were into it. So, it'd be something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so...
and what about, a book or even, a course that you invested in that, really helped progress you to...
It would be my ones when I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to... any real estate spruiker that came from America, I was the first in line to go and listen to them. And the course might have been $50 for the day, and the cassette pack would have been $7.50.
Yeah.
But I bought every cassette. I bought everything I could possibly buy. I bought every book. And I used to read them then. And fundamentally everything in those things all comes back. The one thing is the rules haven't changed. The formulas haven't changed. Everything about property and everything is fundamentally the same as what it was back then. The difference today is the red tape, the cost of building something. Like when my mum and dad built their first house, there was no carpet, there was no curtains, it was a 3-bedroom house for 7 people, no garage, no driveway, no fencing. You got a house.
Yeah.
1 toilet, 1 shower. Now today,
you get the whole thing. Yeah.
You're on the flat screen TV in 3 rooms. You know, so young people expect all that, and like it or not, they get that because that comes with the packages.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to force more credit onto young people, so they include everything. And when you're young, credit's fine. Well, as you get older, you don't want too much borrowing.
Well, that's what we were talking about before, is how Tony Robbins always says success leaves clues. So, looking at when you said you invested and learned from every single person that come to America to speak about real estate, it's investing in your learning so that you can grow, because you're wanting to model the people that are doing the right things. And like you said, it hasn't changed in, 30 years?
No, it's the same. I mean, I came to a seminar with you the other day, and even though everyone there's in their 20s and 30s, and I'm nearly 60, what was said was really not a lot different to what was said 30, 40 years ago, So it's about discipline. It's still fundamentally about hard work. You have to work hard. You can't expect to just...
I think, and to reframe, that working hard, I think what you're saying is, that focus, that absolute pinpoint laser focus for what you want, and sacrificing maybe the things that are easy and feel comfortable for that uncomfortability, and focusing on what it is that you want. To keep that discipline. Yeah.
And I used to just believe, rightly or wrongly, that if I was doing better than everyone else in my age, So if I was 21 and I was doing better than when I was 21, then I was happy. And I know that seems a silly gauge to have.
Yeah.
But I used that all the way through my life.
Yeah.
And till I got to a point where it sort of got a bit blurred in my late 40s. And
yeah, well, I think like everyone that's starting out in that journey, they always have that belief that's attached to their vision, or like, if I get this, then I'll be happy. And so that's kind of like what progressed you started that moment.
Without a doubt, when you're younger, all those things are goals. And
now that you've like gotten older, you've kind of realised, well, actually, like, because you said before, you could just keep working and keep making money, but now it's like at a point where actually, like, I'm happy right now.
Yes.
Like, I don't need anything to be happy.
Yeah.
Like, not attaching your happiness to the outcome.
No, but it's easy for me to sit here and say, I'm happy because I've got enough.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of hypocrisy in all of that too, because it is easy when you've made your wealth and you've done it yourself. I don't feel any guilt or anything when people say, oh, well, I haven't got there, I don't have this, I don't have that. That ain't my problem.
Yeah.
I didn't either. I mean, I made all my money myself.
Yeah.
And I worked with some really smart people, and I made myself indispensable with them in the sense that I took over, I ran things, so for them to get rid of me was more a burden on them.
Yeah.
Oh, how am I going to run this crap now if we get rid of him? So, I drank too much, I didn't go to work enough. I can tell you all the little stories and secrets of how to not work and still get the results, but I won't. But, I used to sell, just in real estate, I used to sell deals and I wouldn't even tell my boss I sold them.
Yeah.
So I just keep them under the thing. So if I went missing for 2 days, when you come yelling and screaming, where have you been? I'd just pull out a deal and say, I've been working hard, here's the deal. Oh, good boy, you'd say, and off you'd go and leave me alone again. Then I'd go to the pub again for another 2 days because I'd have another one hidden under there. So, those kind of things. But in their eyes, the results were what mattered. I did 75 deals that year. He didn't care whether he did, he liked to see you, but at the end of the day, he really didn't care. If I was there every day and did 10 deals for the year, it wouldn't work. Even though I was hiding at the pub or doing whatever I was doing or running away, as long as I did 75 deals, he didn't care.
Yeah.
So results are very important.
Yeah.
How you get them. Some people do it easily. Some people have to work harder at it. It's just the way life is.
Yeah, I think, so to then recap, so it would be discipline, staying focused, and like going all in commitment on your vision.
100%.
And then producing the results and like showing up and showing, like, being irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So asking that question of like, rather than asking disempowering questions or like, why am I not good enough? How come they're doing better than me? It's like, okay, how can I improve and make myself irreplaceable? What is it that I can do, or what is it that I can apply or provide to my service or whatever it is that you do as a listener to then, become irreplaceable?
Yeah, I always look at, even if you look at an office of 100 people, and the person who will progress through there is generally the one that when the boss gets there, that person's already there. And when the boss leaves, that person's still there.
Yeah, it's kind of like Michael Jordan says in the Last Dance Netflix series.
Yeah.
He always says like he was there early for training and then the last to leave. Yeah.
Now, even if in the middle of the day you've gone missing in action for 4 hours because you went home to sleep because you've been up early and stayed late, they don't notice that. They only notice that you were the first into the office and you were the last out. And you have to have the results.
Yeah.
But out of 100 people in an office, I can guarantee you will be in the top 10 if they're looking for someone to promote or to move up the ladder. So it's standing out. It's been...
Obviously, if you went home to sleep for 4 hours and you weren't getting results, probably not a good idea.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you need to be noticed.
Yeah.
You need to...
It's like getting ready for that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
When it presents itself.
I'm not saying go home every day and have a sleep. Yeah, it's just being noticed.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there with 99 other people, they're all doing exactly the same thing. When the bell rings at 5, you go, you turn up at 9, then you won't get noticed.
Yeah.
And so it's important you stand out. It's important particularly when you're young, you just work hard.
Yeah, well, it's like what we were saying before about getting prepared for the opportunity. And so like doing what is it that you can do right now that is going to help like you get ready for when that opportunity does present itself.
But it comes to luck. If you got a promotion, everyone will say, God, you're lucky you got that out of that.
Yeah, that's the outside perspective. Everyone from the outside looking in would be like, oh, you're so lucky. But really, you're the one showing up early, you're the one staying late, you're the one putting in the discipline, the work, the commitment, and getting ready to receive that opportunity.
Yeah, and those opportunities are always coming along. Just being prepared in your field. And there are opportunities in different fields, even in sporting.
Yeah.
You know, in sporting teams and sporting fields, you know. So if you train and train.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity comes along, you'll be prepared.
Oh, well, like the amount of people, like even for myself personally, now that I'm working with professional athletes as a mindset coach, now I say that to people and I've been in conversation, then it's like seeing opportunities where people go, oh, well, I know a few athletes that would benefit from this. And that's where I go, yeah, all right, get me in contact with them. And that's like an opportunity presenting itself because I'm ready for that. So I think the listeners like are getting so much value from this conversation. I know that I am. And Simon, I usually finish up my podcast episodes with like one question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So with this question, you don't have to talk about what we've spoken on today. It could be anything.
Sure.
And what I ask is, what would be one piece of advice, a statement, a word, something that you believe the listeners need to hear right now? Could be on life, could be on finance,
it is
could
on
be
life.
anything.
I've been able generally to fix everything in life. If I have a problem at work, I can fix it.
Yeah.
If I have a problem with generally my family or whatever, I can fix it. But I learnt through relationships that when I tried to fix it and fix it and fix it and fix it, that you can't fix everything. So you can put years and years and years into something. Just try and be aware that you can't fix everything. So sometimes it's better to acknowledge it early and move on, and not just with relationships, but with everything. There are certain things you can't fix. So anyway, that'd be it.
Yeah.
And that's something that's stuck with me all my life because generally I've been able to fix everything. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sort of matriarch in some respects of our family after my father passed away 7 years ago in terms of our Queensland people. And you know, with money's good to fix things with. You know, you can fix a lot of problems with money, but there are certain problems you can't fix with anything. You can't fix it with love, emotion, empathy, money, time.
Yeah.
So maybe just more be aware that, you know, you put a fair bit of effort into trying to fix something, try and have a vision when it can't be fixed looking forward so you don't waste too much time on it. That would be my boring, non-philosophical piece of advice for everyone.
Here, I'll put a philosophy twist on it. So, not fixing everything, because at the end of the day, sometimes things happen for you, not to you. And so when these things happen, instead of trying to fix it and force things to work how you wanted it to, sometimes the greater source or whatever it is you believe in, God, universe, has a better plan for you mapped out. And I truly believe that everything that happens to us happens for us. And when we try and control what's coming next, we limit ourselves and our potential.
Sure. Yeah.
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 Cool. It's been a pleasure having you on today,
It's been a pleasure
Simon.
being on. Always a pleasure talking to you.
And so, like, I know I'm going to get heaps of messages after this, people being like, I want to get in contact with Simon, so we'll figure that out. You don't have social media or anything. Yeah. You're a completely anonymous.
I have a Facebook account that I probably haven't changed the photo on for about 5 years, but that's about it.
I love it. We'll figure something out, and I'm sure if you start doing like seminars and teachings, we'll definitely let all the listeners know. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. And
I mean, at my age, I'd love to just try and pass on a little bit of the knowledge I've got to younger people. Yeah. Not interested in 40 and 50-year-olds, if you're listening.
Sorry, guys.
In your 20s and 30s, you know, I really do feel like as part of my journey, it'd be nice to try and pass on some of the stuff, because noticed even sitting in the seminar the other week that you can just see they don't know what these people are talking about, and it's not their fault.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
only
they
know
haven't
what
been
you know.
told.
Yeah.
So knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And knowledge is very, very, very important. And you only gain knowledge by listening to other people. And, the seminars and all those sort of things that you attended that are just brilliant. Yeah, really, really brilliant. I mean, I did it many years ago, and going the other week was just, it was really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
I'm so glad. Well, I think at the end of the day, you could lose everything, and the best investment that you can make is within yourself, because if you have yourself, like, you know how to fix things, or you know how to get back to where you want to be. And I really think that investing in yourself and your growth and your learning is one of the best investments that you can make. And like you said, that was probably one of the best things you invested in that was under $100 in your life. So it's pretty cool. Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Simon, today, and I cannot wait to get you on board again. I'm sure everyone will be waiting for the next episode that we do together. But like I said, I will put any information in the show notes. Thanks for listening, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.